Is this the most powerful card that you can draft in Bloomburrow? Well, it may or may not be, but it definitely caused some psychic damage in my drafts today at my local game store. Combine that one with Ruthless Negotiation and Bandit's Talent. And I had some very quick wins in my first two matches. Actually, my first match of the day, the guy forfeited after 5 turns because he couldn't get anything going because I hit him with the Psychic Whorl, I hit him with the Ruthless Negotiation, and hit him with the Bandit's Talent. And it was a bit demoralizing, I think, for him. Like, I'm sorry, it's part of the game, but he just couldn't get any synergies going. He couldn't really like get any cards into play because I was just ripping them out of his hands as soon as he was getting them. And it was a very interesting play that I have yet to see in Bloomburrow. I've seen a lot of interaction of between cards and in archetypes, but this was the first one that was sort of a direct attack approach, almost a mini mill approach, but from the hand. And it worked really well for me in my first 2 games, or 2 matches, actually. My third match of the day didn't go as well, but we will talk a little bit about that. And we could go over all of the cards I drafted here and show you each and every one like this, bringing them up to the camera, zooming in if we wanted to. But I think it might be a little easier if we just go to Arena, where I've added all of the cards that I drafted, even showing you some of the sideboard cards that I had, and we'll talk through sort of my draft mentality and kind of what made sense and where I ended up on the day. So without further ado, let's dive into this. This was what kind of got me into rats right off the bat. This was definitely one of the first 3 picks. I'm pretty sure it was my first pick. It was the strongest card in the pack that I had, and I was like, rats seem like a good idea. Let's see if we can get rats going, but we're going to keep ourselves open for the first 4 or 5 cards, and that's when I think 3 Tree Scribe came through, and I started to think about maybe doing frogs or squirrels because it works well in there as well. I also got a Cindering Cutthroat in those first 4 picks, and I was like, okay, I could switch over to lizards. Go red-black. Lizards is one of the strongest colors. So is green-black. Green-blue, not so much, but frogs does. I shouldn't say not so much. It's a mid-tier. It's a B-tier deck, so it does do well. And then I picked up another red, and I was like, we might be going lizards. I think I got the Teapot Slinger on 4 or 5, and it got me thinking that I might go red. But then I started to get some pretty good rats. And one of my favorites is Thought Shucker. Or not Thought Shucker. Night Whirl Hermit. And I got this early, and I really like this one because it can't be blocked. And I know there's another card that can't be blocked. And as long as you have Threshold, that it does allow you to draw a card and discard a card. Or once you have the actual Threshold, you get to draw the card and keep the card. So that was something I was kind of on the lookout for. If I could get a few of these cards that just have evasion built right into them, I can buff them with various other cards like Patchwork Banner that allows me to declare a creature type and give it a +1/+1. So there was a couple ways I could buff the cards, keep them unblockable, and then scoot in. And so I got really excited about rats, and so I started going in heavy into blue, black, and specifically in rats. Managed to pick up that Psychic Whorl that we talked about. Bandit's Talent was the other one where they had to discard 2 cards unless they discarded non-land. So they had to discard at least 1 card or 2 lands. We also had the Thornplate Intimidator, which was another discard card. So they either took 3 life, sacrificed a non-land permanent, or discarded a card that usually ended up being either the life or discard a card. And I managed to play it with the Offspring a couple times in my games as well. Uh, Another really powerful one, Daggerfang Duo. Pretty much all the Duo cards are really, really good. So if you can snag them in your archetype as you're drafting, this allowed me to get to Threshold faster. And there was another card I had that allowed me to pull there's another card in here. Yes, Hazel's Nocturne. Return 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So I managed to play both of my Daggerfang Duos one turn. One of them died. I then was able to play it again, milling more cards and then getting Threshold, which really kind of helps with what I was trying to do with Threshold. Really trying to get Thought Shucker up so that I could get some more card draw, make this a 2/4, so it's a nice body on the table. Mind Whisker, as long as I had 7 or more cards in your graveyard or Threshold, creatures your opponent control get -1, -0. That saved me, so it made it really easy to block a lot of my opponent's cards. This was the one I was talking about. I was able to get these on the board, get them under their line of defense, and just start ticking them every turn for 1 or 2 damage, depending on if I had Threshold. And then obviously Daggerfang Duo has that Death Touch 3/2. A couple combat tricks with, well, really just one, I think, Scales of Shale, and then Saber is a combat trick that I did use a couple times. Patchwork Banner did a lot of work for me. I think in all of my games, so I ended up playing 2 games my first match, 2 games my second match, went 2-0 and 2-0. And then in my third match, I went, lost the first one, won the second one, and then lost the third one. So I had a total of 7 matches. And I think out of those, probably 5 of them, I got Patchwork out in the first 3 turns. So it did a lot of work, gave me ramp, gave me +1/+1 on my rats. And I had to save it one time from Banishing Light with Early Winter. That was pretty funny. Somebody Banishing Light my Patchwork, and then I was like, I have an answer. I can get rid of the enchantment. And so I used Early Winter and got rid of Banishing Light, getting my Patchwork Banner back. Then other cards like good game finishers for me were Husk Burster Swarm. Again, I'm trying to get cards into the graveyard, so that made Husk Burster pretty cheap. But to be honest with you, I ended up paying almost full cost for it every time. I think I took like 1, maybe 2 colorless mana off the cost of it every time I cast it. But still, once I got it down, it was pretty difficult for them to deal with because they were already trying to deal with some of my other threats on the board. So like I said, Night Whorl, which was just getting in and pinging them, or Daggerfang because of the Death Touch. Thornplate was another one. It was just a big body of 4/3 was another one. Calamitous Tide also did some interesting stuff for me. There was a couple times where I was facing a rabbit generation card. So they were actually playing green-blue and frogs, but they had a couple of rabbit cards that were generating rabbits. So I was having them pick up tokens and getting them off the field, so it was acting as removal for me. And then drawing those two cards, and then discarding a card again, helping with Threshold. Or I could have discarded a creature and helped with Huskburster. So I did use Calamitous Tide to trigger Threshold at least one time because I was able to discard a card and get it in there, moving me from 6 to 7 cards in the graveyard, allowing me to do a little bit more work. Here was another really interesting Threshold rat that I had. I actually never got to play it. Never got to play Mind Drill Assailant. But if Threshold is achieved, I can do +3/+0. Plus, it has the ability to Surveil 1. So again, I can put cards into the graveyard. It gives me that ability to get cards in there, get that Threshold, maybe reduce the cost of Huskburster was another thing that I was looking for. And you'll also notice that I'm running 41 cards in here. So you would say, okay, well, why aren't you running 16 lands even. Well, Patchwork was acting as a land, so I counted that. So I'm running 16 lands as well as 41 cards. This particular set is really low to the ground. This is another reason I wanted to do this in Arena. You can see the curve. I had a lot of cards under 3 mana, so I was able to get a lot of my cards down, and then my expensive ones, besides Calamitous, so we're talking Husk Burster here, could be a lot cheaper just by getting cards into the graveyard. So I've found that really in Arena or in person, you can very, very easily run 16 lands. And then in this particular case, I ran 16 lands and 41 cards. The reason for that, I threw the 41st card in there, was Heirloom Epic. It was just a 1 mana, pay 4, tap, draw a card. For each mana in this ability's activation cost, you may tap an untapped creature you control rather than pay the mana. Activate only as a sorcery. I threw this in there because I was stalling out a little bit on card draw. Because I had so many cheap cards, I was getting them out fast and then drawing out and getting too low on cards. So I threw Epic Heirloom in there. I did have a couple other options with either like Fountain Port Bell or just regular Fountain Port. I could have played that as well. I thought about it. It is a really, really good card. I just saw that 4 mana to create the treasure token, and then I didn't have a lot of token generation. So really this Fountain Port would have been pay 4 to create a treasure token, or pay 3 to create a blue fish token, and then pay the 2 to sacrifice a token and draw a card. So the lowest cost I could get to draw a card was 5 mana versus Heirloom Epic, which is 4 mana, plus I could use my creatures to tap as well to draw that. So that's why I played Heirloom Epic over, say, Fountain Port as another card. I did have some hard time figuring out which cards to cut. I was stuck at like 25, 26 non-land cards for a really long time because I really wanted to kind of keep Lightshell Duo in here. So it's a 3/4 with Prowess, and then when it enters, Surveil 2. So it was really good at getting cards into the graveyard for me. Plus it had Prowess, and I had, we can take a look here. I had 6 instants and sorceries, or 6 instants, 3 sorceries, and 2 artifacts. So I essentially had 11 cards that would trigger Prowess, but I wouldn't really be able to just like double Prowess a lot. So I don't know. It was a hard call. In retrospect, I mean, for 4 mana, what are we competing with? I probably could have got rid of Downwind Ambusher. However, it was sort of my trump card to keep Starscape Cleric in the air and Moonrise Cleric in the air, so that I could just do a little bit of damage to a big flying threat, and then Downwind Ambusher it, so destroy target creature an opponent controls that it was dealt damage this turn. What ended up happening is I actually had several scenarios where I blocked with my flying creatures, and actually this was one scenario, but it was one of the games I lost, and so I was really frustrated by it, is I was able to block the flyer, but I didn't have enough mana available to play Downwind Ambusher, because I had to spend the mana just to get the flying creature out, and then I had to block to not die, and then just never really got to use Downwind Ambusher. So it might have been a little too expensive. However, I think it is a really interesting trick card to play if I could have got it to go off. But that was one of my thoughts, was like, okay, I can keep this, do a little bit of damage with a 1/1 flyer or a 2/1 flyer from Starscape Cleric. I'm not gaining life. I'm not really using the ability. It was more just air defense to combine with Downwind Ambusher. I wish I could say it. As well as Saver was the other trick. So if I was facing a 3/3 bird, which was that actually killed me in my last game over and over again, both of the games I lost, he got a 3/3 bird down, and then kept using that green frog card that when it came in, it gave X plus X plus X counters on a card for every creature and food token that you have. And so he was just putting it on the bird and swinging for 11. And so if I could have blocked and then hit with downwind ambusher, or early on when he was just swinging for 3, if I could have blocked with a 1/1 or this 2/1, and hit it with saver, I could have killed it. Never got saver during either one of those matches that I lost. So it was really tough. Couldn't afford downwind in one of the instances that really could have saved me. Another one that was interesting choice was Runaway Together. This did allow me to save a card one time, so I managed to bounce. He double blocked with 2 tokens, 2 rabbit tokens. I bounced one of the tokens, and because he was double blocking a Daggerfang duo, so it's a 3/2 is a Daggerfang duo, and so to save the Daggerfang duo, I bounced one of his tokens, and then I bounced another one of my cards to put back onto the play field. I believe it was Thought Shucker, so I could get another draw. So I thought that was a really interesting move. So had Thought Shucker out. It was already buffed to a 2/4. Already got my card draw off of it. I bounced that one, and I bounced the token, saving Daggerfang Duo, replaying Thought Shucker, and then the next turn, because I already had Threshold, I was able to pay the 1 colorless, 1 blue, put the 1/1 counter back on it, and get another card draw. So it got me some card draw. Thought it was a pretty clever move. So it did do something. So I was thinking, like, what are some cards I could have cut? But if we're looking at 2 mana, maybe a 1/1 frog for just like straight card draw. Otherwise, that Light Shell Duo is up there in that 4 mana range. So that would have shifted my curve, which may or may not have been a good thing. I think with me running 16 lands, 1 hidden behind an artifact, staying low to the ground was a good strategy. What would I have changed in this? I think a little bit more spot removal would have been really nice. I think I really only had early winter, and everything else was sort of discard out of hand. So Hazel's Nocturne, Bandit's Talent, Ruthless Negotiation, the Psychic Whorl, and then Thornplate potentially was some removal, or it was just life lost. So really didn't have a ton of good ways to remove a big threat or an annoying threat like the bird that ended up killing me. I think in both games he ended up at some point swinging with a double-digit bird that he buffed and really wrecking me. We actually went to time, so if you've ever played an in-person draft, when you go to time, you have 5 turns from time starting at turn 0, so whatever turn is on right now is turn 0, and then that next person's turn is turn 1, and then it's your turn, turn 2, so on and so forth, right? And he managed to actually just kill me in those 5 turns. I thought we would be able to like stalemate or like figure out something, or I could normalize and then maybe deal with this threat and get some damage in and then, do something. But no, he just managed to kill me in those 5 turns with that bird. And so definitely maybe a couple more point removals. I could have got away with like, getting rid of one Runaway Together, maybe Persistent Marsh Stalker. It is a decent card because I can return it back to the battlefield tapped and attacking. But I could have got rid of that for some removal. But to be fair, I didn't see a lot of removal in blue and black. Maybe a counterspell I passed. I think I passed that 2 mana blue counterspell, the dazzling one. That might have been an opportunity, but yeah, that's probably the weakest part of this deck is it didn't have enough point removal. I think I made the right choice with going with rats based off of what I was given, even though I knew it wasn't one of the top 4 archetypes, which just a quick recap are squirrels, are rabbits, our lizards and our bats are actually the top 4 based off untapped.gg data for arena drafts. So that was what I had in my head that I really wanted to go for, but I saw rats open. I took rats. Nobody was contending me for rats. And so I felt really good about that draft and did pretty well. So first game, I went 2-0. Guy forfeited twice within 5 turns. Second game went a little bit more of a match, but I was just getting in with Night Whorl. Couldn't block it. I had it nice and buffed. So it was doing 3 damage every turn because of Patchwork plus Threshold. And it was just doing work for me. Plus I hit him with the Ruthless Negotiation and the Psychic Whorl, and it just kind of demoralized, and he forfeited on both of his matches. But I think we got to turn 10 or 11 on each of those. And then my last match of the day, unfortunately lost and went 1-2 in that matchup. But on the day, went 2-1, felt really good about it, completed all of my matches. The last draft we did, I went to draw in 2 of my matches, won 1 of my matches outright. So it was a much better feeling, a better feeling of completionism and confidence building. I felt really good about my draft, my decisions, my gameplay. I was really thinking through all of my options and my interactions, and it ended up doing really well for me. So this was my first IRL local game store draft review. I'd love for your comments. Leave them below. Do you like these? Do you like reviews of kind of what I did in person, how those games went, the decisions I made, and the kind of breakdown of different interactions, synergies with those cards, why I chose them, how, these are all things that I think are really interesting to sort of share. And I don't consider myself the draft expert, but I am practicing a lot and researching a lot of draft, and hopefully I can help you get from where you are in your drafting up the ranks. And currently I think I'm gold 1 or gold 2 in draft and arena, and I definitely feel like I'm going to be ending in platinum or diamond at the very least, and really targeting mythic. So why don't you join along with me? Watch my drafts Monday through Thursday on twitch.tv/halfpump. And there will be some weeks where I'm traveling and for work, and so I may not stream, but I will be posting YouTube videos on each of those days that I'm not streaming for different content. And this is one of those videos. So let me know your thoughts on this. What other content do you want to see? I'm really invested in this path to pro and qualifying for the Pro Tour. So I'm making a ton of content. So let me know. I'm really interested in what sort of things you would like my opinion on, or what you would like me to document in my journey. So I'm making long form content like this on YouTube. I'm documenting more of my day-to-day on Instagram, having conversations on Twitter, and then things coming up like MagicCon. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be documenting my experience there as well. So I really appreciate everybody swinging on by, taking a look at the video, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.